Find this page. Page 33. We're going to work on a little bit of this together, but first, I want you to read this paragraph and try to figure out what's wrong with this woman. Something is wrong with her in this context. Right? See if you can figure that out, and then I'll do the rest of the questions with you. But see if you can figure out what's wrong with our girl. It has to do with what we're talking about.
Is it endometriosis?
I don't know. A couple more seconds to move through it. I see a nod. I see another nod. I see more nodding. Okay, how many of you agree with the diagnosis of endometriosis? Good, that's a good choice. So let's figure out that word, just so you understand what it says. Hey, endometry, I know what that is. What's endometry mean? Inside of your uterus, the inner lining, the endometrial lining. So endometriosis means basically endometrium gone amok, right? So, her endometrius is acting up, however you want to phrase it. Let's figure out number 2, though. Can someone tell me from medical terminology or your job what the word ectopic means? Outside.
So it grows on your organs.
Sure, outside of where it should be. So
Yeah.
where should endometrium be? Inside my uterus. That means it's not inside my uterus, it's somewhere else, like on your ovaries. Ovaries are not in my uterus, so why is my endometrium there? Right? So ectopic pregnancy simply means outside the uterus. Ectopic endometrium means outside my uterus. So, could it exist? Well, yeah, because it is, right? That's a yes. Now, the harder question is, why would it be there? How can you get an endometrium out of your uterus?
The lining, it doesn't it like shed?
It does, but it comes out your vagina, right?
It could go back up the fallopian tube.
How can it go back up my fallopian tubes?
Not sure. It could be too full.
The environment changes in the.
Let's find out.
Okay.
Here's a picture that you learned last week. If you zoom in right here, here's an ovary, right? Here's a fallopian tube. What do you see right here? An opening. There's no connection between your ovary and your fallopian tube. None. They're not plumbed together like an esophagus would be. So that means when you ovulate, the eggs kind of shoot out in your abdomen. They zip around like the Millennium Falcon, and they head on down. fallopian tube. Okay, you actually caught that reference. Okay. Creep out moment number 2, when sperm come up, they actually can go out your fallopian tube and swim around your abdomen for a while. You'll never have sex again. All right? But now let's think about it. If there's a hole here, what else could come out your fallopian tube if there's a hole? Your endometrium. It could break off here and end up retrograding, they call it, back out, because there's nothing keeping it in. So your endometrium could flush outwards, upwards, and pop out in your abdomen. Where would it end up if it's out here?
On your uterus.
On my uterus outside, on my ovary, on your spleen, which is right about here. Right? It could end up outside of where it belongs. Right? So another view of this, just to show you I'm not making this up much, on this on the picture tonight, you notice that there's sort of a gap between the fallopian tube and the ovary, because they're not connected. So your endometrium could go backwards out your fallopian tube and end up on body parts. So there may be ectopic endometrial tissue on the wrong place.
How does that happen?
We don't know.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, I mean, is it kind of like a seed implanting, or?
Yeah, so there's two.
It sounds like a tumor.
Yeah, there's 2 general hypotheses. I mean, I'm not prone endometriosis, but there's the one hypothesis called the retrograde hypothesis, which says, okay, one day this stuff broke off, either because of menstruation or whatever. And instead of going down, it went backwards because of some trauma or your menstrual flow was blocked or something. The other hypothesis will know if this didn't break off and go out, the other tissues decided to genetically act like an endometrium. If you go back to 112, right, all your cells have the same DNA.
Yeah.
So every cell in your body could be a uterus. So one day your spleen wakes up and says, hi, I want to be a uterus. And then it begins to cycle as though a uterus was there.
So this is genetic then?
Partly they think it is. But they don't know. Honestly, they have no idea how endometriosis really works.
So can the fertilized egg go back out and implant?
Yep.
Huh.
Yeah, extrauterine pregnancies is when you fertilize and the egg comes out over here and sticks in someplace else, like your colon.
Oh my gosh.
It's a viable pregnancy, just you're not giving a vaginal birth without one.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, poor kid.
Really. But anyway, back to our case, as you all get grossed out. Now the questions that you have to know from tonight are number 5 and 6. A gonadotropin inhibitor. So remind me what the gonadotropins are. What letters are they? FSH and LH. So if I turn off FSH and LH, would that help this girl? Yes, it would. Let's review. So in the follicular phase, what do LH and FSH tell my ovaries to do? To turn on,
Oh, whoops.
grow an egg, and then do what? Make estrogen to thicken my uterus. So if I have endometriosis, do you want thicker uterus? Probably not. So if I shut these off, my ovaries would not make estrogen, and therefore the estrogen would not grow my uterus. So my uterus would not grow, which would save me the headache. All right? So I'm going to stop the production of gonadotropins to stop my uterus from growing. That make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So you're inhibiting the follicular phase. Okay. Yes?
Is that still going to be shed if she stops all that? That's just a lost pregnancy?
It depends on when the cycle she did it, yeah. But in theory, if this turns off, then if you had a corpus luteum, it would degrade, and then you'd menstruate. If you hadn't yet gotten here, then you wouldn't even do this.
Even
You
though it's
wouldn't.
on the wrong side of the tube,
Right.
it would have to stop, like, do you have to force it back up and around? It doesn't unstuff.
Do you get that?
Mm-hmm.
So how does danazol stop ovulation? Why does it stop ovulation? Let's go over here. What does it take to ovulate? Like these, and what's my estrogen doing on danazol? I don't have estrogen, and I can't make these, therefore I cannot ovulate. Right? I'm turning off the brain pituitary ovary cycle. So you're not going to get into spikes unless you can turn on those hormones. Does that make sense? You're basically shutting off the follicular phase. So if I don't ovulate, it's because I can't make my brain turn on my ovaries. Make sense?
So what happens when there's no baby inside a fertilized egg, or like a ghost baby, kind of, where your body thinks you're pregnant, but you're really not? There is such a thing.
Yeah, are there ghost babies on the farm?
No, but it's
You mean like
I'll get back to you.
Well,
I have no idea.
but you know what I mean, like,
No, I don't. You mean like a molar pregnancy?
yeah, like where it's.
That's a problem after conception. So you screw up the mitosis to get the embryo. So you
Oh.
had a fertilization, but you then don't create the baby out of it.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, it's molar.
Malar. Okay.
We'll do it next week, but there's a step you have to do.
Are we gonna talk about stone babies too? Those petrified?
Oh, like the little people that are like your twin buried in your
No, no.
Yeah, that's
They're
crazy
basically
too.
it'll be like a 70-year-old woman who's been complaining of like abdominal pain since she was like 30 years old, and then they did like an
the
ultrasound, and they're like, you have a
calcified
petrified fetus
The
inside of
calcified
you.
fetuses.
See, you think farming's strange. Like a stone ghost baby.
Stone baby is different than ghost baby.
I don't know. Let's go back to here.
Or this could be a stillbirth, and then it.
All right. Number 7. Would an oral contraceptive also work? Well, you don't know because, well, maybe you do. Let me teach you about oral contraceptives. Let's go back
Uh-oh.
to PBS. All right? Bioborn, you just keep on. All right. So let's read through what the pill's doing. What's in your birth control pill? What's in a birth control pill? There's maybe one or two things. Estrogen and or progesterone. Okay, so it's the ovarian hormones. So think about it. If I have a bunch of progesterone in my body, what does it tell my brain?
You're pregnant.
I'm pregnant, I'm ovulated, I'm already doing this. So what would a brain do if you have high levels of those hormones? It's going to stop ovulation because the brain thinks you've already done all this. The only time in your body estrogen and progesterone will be high is if you ovulated and are now in luteal phase. So if you read through this here, I love the first sentence. The pill uses the body's negative feedback system to stop ovulation. You're trying to convince the brain you're over here in the luteal phase. If you're in the luteal phase, I'm not going to make more eggs. That's what you're doing with the pills. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, blah, blah, blah. Travel to the bloodstream, go to my brain, and the estrogen suppresses production of FSH in the pituitary gland. The mature follicle does not occur. So again, you're just doing the luteal phase. You're trying to shut off the brain. Right? People say you're pregnant. You kind of are. You're fooling the body that you're still pregnant. I love this line. The pituitary gland steps down production. So in other words, I'm telling my brain to turn off. Therefore, without those chemicals, no follicles develop, no estrogen gets going, uterine lining doesn't grow, therefore nothing happens. Right? So if you read your label on your birth control pills, you're supposed to begin taking them when? The day what? After your
Period.
So if you think about it, that's why your periods are lighter. You flushed your uterus, and now you tell your brain not to grow one. So your periods will be lighter because you don't have anything to, you haven't grown anything at all. Right? So you tend to have lighter periods on the pill because you basically stopped the follicular phase, went right to the luteal phase. Make sense?
Why do you have period at all then?
The sugar pill?
I know, but
Placebo.
if you didn't grow a thicker endometrium.
There's still some tissue there. You just don't grow nearly as much as you would if you went the whole cycle. So it's a limited growth.
If you just take the active pills continuously, you won't.
That's right.
You still need pills even after the danazol?
It would work the same. Danazol would take the place of the pill.
Oh, okay.
So doing okay? So we don't do eggs if we're telling the brain there's already estrogen. So if we go back to our case study, would an oral contraceptive work?
Yes.
It should, right? Because if I'm taking it, I'm going to turn off the brain ovulation estrogen cycle, assuming that she menstruated before she took the pill. There's an assumption there.
So with a hysterectomy, does those go away?
Depends. Are your
The
ovaries
hormones?
still in you or not? If the ovaries are in you, then everything would be exactly like that, except you wouldn't menstruate. Because obviously there's no uterus.
Mm-hmm.
If they took out the ovaries too, then all that shuts off. Because there's no ovaries to make anything. So it depends if the ovaries in or out.
But if you have it, like, after a hysterectomy, you don't have a uterus, so therefore you're not gonna have any endometrium
That's right.
to grow.
But
So
your
would that
brain
also
pituitary
be,
don't know that.
but would that also be a fix for endometriosis?
Yes.
Is that like a last case scenario?
That works.
Okay.
Problem is if it's outside the uterus on something else.
Does it ever travel from your ovaries to the other?
Yep.
So it's kind of like once it's already started.
Yeah, I had a student one time who was a doctor, she told me her doctor said her endometriosis was on her scapula. I don't know how I got there, I'm not a doctor.
What?
But in theory, every month her scapula would inflame, and every month her scapula would try to menstruate. So you could just take the uterus out and magically make that one go away. Right? So that was all the chemical junk that hit.
So the pill in essence sort of freezes the endometrial
Yes.
development wherever it is. So if she were to start taking that while it's really bad, it would basically just stay really bad until
Yes.
something.
So if
Okay.
you start taking birth control pills while your uterus is really thick, it just stay kind of thick. If you do it after you menstruate, then it's already thick.
Do you switch off on fallopian tubes when you
In theory,
menstruate?
because you would switch off normally in the ovaries.
So does it usually go through 2-month cycle of the follicular phase per fallopian tube?
Each one would only do the ovaries, should just do one.
Okay.
You okay on that concept? Okay, so find this page a little further down. Since we mentioned birth control pills, find page 40. We're going to briefly go through this. The PCC says, thou shalt understand contraception, thou shalt. So, I'm going to do my job because the college is my pimp. I do what he says.
College is
Alright.
your pimp.
So, let's figure out how these work in line of biology. Abstinence. I wonder how that works. Right? If only people understood that, think I'm okay. You don't have sex, you can't get a baby. It always works. How about that? Spermicide. How's that work?
Kills the sperm.
Kill the sperm. If sperm are dead, it doesn't matter what the egg's doing, right? Okay, you got that. Condoms or diaphragms?
Lock sperm.
Block sperm from egg, right? If this egg and sperm can't meet, there's no conception. That seems pretty easy. Now you understand D. Oral contraceptives. How do they work?
Block ovulation.
They block ovulation. They basically do these 4 things here. You tell your brain to turn everything off. You're inhibiting the brain axis or maintenance uteral phase, or you're pregnant, however you want to view it. But you're turning off the brain to turn off the ovaries, to turn off the uterus. How about Depo-Provera? The same exact mechanism. It's different chemical, but the same rationale. I'm going to tell your brain not to turn on your ovaries, therefore you don't ovulate. Give you a hint, every hormonal contraceptive is the same. So Norplant, you do the same thing. You're trying to tell your brain you're luteal, thereby reduce ovulation.
So how does that work? Because it's usually they put it in your arm, right? So how does that work?
The coating of each thing, basically it's like a birth control pill you don't eat. So what it is the little tubes are coated so it releases a certain amount of estrogen per day.
Mm-hmm.
The same amount that basically would be in the pill. And so as the estrogen leaks out of these little tubes, it goes in your bloodstream, your brain gets that, thinks you're here. And then just because they're implanted, there's so many of them that you just keep your estrogen level high for, was it 2 years? For a plant, roughly? Yeah, it's like a Depo-Provera shot. Depo-Provera is 3 months because it's just a bigger dose.
Yeah.
Okay, pull and pray. We all know how that does not work very well, right? It's not a good plan. Right? Okay, natural family planning. What do they do? Don't have sex around ovulation, or have sex around ovulation if you want a baby. So you're trying to time ovulation. Right? So you're trying to figure out when the egg is. IUDs. There's 2 kinds. Right. So if you have one with a hormone, it's doing this. If your IUD is hormonal, it's basically doing this part plus the IUD. If you just have a classical IUD, it just stops implantation.
The copper one?
The copper thing that they use to ban.
How does it stop? How does the copper one stop it, though? Does
It's like inhospitable
Doesn't
environment.
Doesn't like having that.
Right, so there's this is worthless trivia, but the uterus has these receptors on it that detect something pushing on it. And the uterus's response is that if something's pushing on me, the only thing that would be is a baby.
Yeah.
So if there's something pushing on me, I'm going to reject implantation for any other possible egg because I only want one baby at a time, not a month apart. So if there's something, they found this by doing fibroid tumors. If you have a tumor in your uterus, nothing will implant.
Mm-hmm.
Same logic. So an IUD pushes on your uterus, the uterus thinks you're pregnant, therefore it rejects future eggs that come down. So no, sperm can get right around those. It's just telling the uterus not to listen to the egg when it comes down.
There's like a new procedure that's kind of like IUD, but it's more permanent. It just came out.
Then I'm lost behind.
Okay.
Let's do vasectomy. Let's not. So let's do tubal ligation since this is on the screen. What are you doing in tubal ligation? You are
Severing.
cutting the. So therefore, sperm over here, egg over there. You block the highway, right? You can't drive without a road. So vasectomy, same thing. You're stopping the sperm and the egg from meeting because the sperm can't get out. Let's find my vas deferens. There it is. So you cut there, sperm can't get out. No sperm.
What happens to the sperm?
They just stay in your epididymis, and eventually they die after 2 weeks, and your white blood cells eat them and spit them out, and you make new ones. It's great to be a sperm. They just live in their school, and then they die eventually of old age. They only live about 2 weeks. So, with the straight. Okay. So let's go to this page now. Let's do some biology. Hopefully, this is not a concern of yours, young children. If you have an STD problem,
Great.
go to a comment. Right? What kind of contraception would you guess? That kind of stuff, right? Because the hormonal stuff doesn't change fluids, right? It just stops you from ovulating. I'm much more interested in 2 and 3 than number 1. Tell me what hormonal agonist means in English. Makes them go. So what contraceptives are the same as hormones?
The oral.
Anything that's hormonal, right? Your birth control pill acts as a hormone, Depo acts as a hormone. That's how they work, right? They're putting hormones to your brain to tell the brain to turn off your ovaries. So they're hormonal agonists. All of them that are hormonal agonists. They work the same as a natural hormone. So how about hormonal antagonists?
The same.
One kind of you see.
Stopping release.
But not directly, right? So in theory, none of them are antagonists. None of them are blocking the hormones. They're telling your brain not to release them. That's not blocking. Think about the label on your birth control. It's estrogen and progesterone. It's the exact same thing you're making already. So the trick to your brain is you have to make the brain think you have more hormones. Therefore, the brain will start to that one. There are some clinical ones, but nothing like that.
But
So, yes.
the emergency contraception Ella that works by blocking progestin, I don't know the exact mechanism, but it's.
Yeah, that one is a progestin receptor antagonist. That one would be one. But in terms of the ones that everyone thinks of, they're all hormonal agonists. Okay. So let's do this one. Contraceptives act on gonads, pituitary, hypothalamus. So where do your contraceptives attack? Let's see. Which part of your body? They connect your pituitary and your hypothalamus. They turn off your brain directly, and the brain then turns off your gonads indirectly. So again, you're telling your brain to turn off your ovaries. The hormones don't work on your ovaries at all. They work on the brain, and the brain tells your ovaries.
So contraceptive could affect your sex drive, potentially.
Yeah, and what's kind of weird, this is Jeebus trivia, but non-endogenous estrogen binds to a different protein in the blood than endogenous estrogen, thereby binds to different receptors in your brain and causes it to reduce the libido, whereas natural estrogen would not.
It's kind of ironic.
It is. So people that are really into soy stuff, their sex drive tends to drop because soy has higher estrogens that bind to a different receptor than the brain. So APD.
So if you were to use natural estrogens in pill form, it would not have that effect on your libido?
In theory. They've done not a lot of research on it, but in theory.
But
The more
since
non-human
most of
it is,
them are
the more.
synthetic,
Right.
or from horse
The
urine,
horses.
right?
Horse urine one will do that as well.
But if we were, I guess, to use pregnant women urine.
In
for-
theory, if you got pregnant women that donate their urine. Yes.
I'm sure they.
Craigslist. Right? Okay.
I'm sure there would be lots.
So, you're affecting the hypothalamus and the pituitary directly, and that's indirectly acting on the gonads. Make sense? So you're telling the brain again to turn off the. Now let's go through this one. So let's pretend you want to do an FP. So let's go down to number C. Why do we care about ovulation? What's so special about that?
Make babies and
What happens at ovulation? Releasing an egg. So if there is no egg, there is
no
chance
baby.
of a baby, right? It takes an egg and a sperm. So if you know when you're ovulating, you understand when that's possible. So let's go back up to then B. What hormones would you see at ovulation? FSH and LH spiking and estrogen. Right there, right across that green. So if you go to the drugstore and get an ovulation test kit, they would test for these three things. They would say if your estrogen and LH levels are high, congratulations, the baby's coming tomorrow. At least the ovulation part is. Make sense? So these are the hormonal signs of ovulation.
There are ovulation tests.
Yes.
Yes.
You can buy ovulation test kits. They usually test for one or the price goes up accordingly. Or you just measure body temperature and cervix and do it for free. But hey. So let's go to number 8. Physical signs of ovulation. We've had some discussion tonight, right? So changes in arousal, temperature changes, your cervix opens and has more mucus.
like your mucus spins is what
That's
they
right.
say.
It's spinny. Right? Yes.
I read that the temperature rise is actually right after you ovulate.
Right, but it begins to climb. So there's a dip about 2 days before, then begins to shoot up to over a degree. So there's a difference in temperature.
Yeah.
And so if you monitor that, you'll see the little check mark, they call it, and then it keeps going. But unlike a baboon, your butt does not turn red. So it's harder for humans to figure this out. So let's go down here. So if you want to stop a man's sperm count, what hormone would you try to deal with? Well, testosterone would screw up his sex drive. I don't think he wants that.
FSH.
FSH would be a good choice, because the fish hormone, or you do something with inhibin, right? But FSH would be the most direct. So if I turn off his FSH, he'll make less sperm, but he'll still have testosterone from the LH. Makes sense?
What happens during menopause for women?
Well, the quick answer is the ovaries go on strike.
Okay.
Your brain yells, and the ovaries don't listen. So all those hormones drop because the ovaries stop producing what they're supposed to. You still have eggs, they just don't get turned on.
Oh, okay.
And your brain keeps screaming more and more, which is a homework question I think for next week. The brain just keeps yelling louder, wandering your ovaries away. Make sense?
Clear's mud.
All right. So do okay on menstrual cycle. So let's go back a couple pages. We're going to do one other little activity because I'm the teacher. I like this one. I get to force you to do it. Power has its privilege. There is no political agenda here. I'm a staunch social conservative, so this is not meant to be a political statement. But we're going to pretend and think about different ways you can define people as male and female. For a little bit of biology here. And then you go home and cry yourself to sleep, but if you're actually a boy or a girl. And you're going to question it after right now. So, let's go back to biology 112. What made you chromosomally a male?
The Y.
Or XY. So you can define a male as someone who has XY chromosomes. And you can define a female as someone who has what? XX. That's called a chromosomal sex test. Right? I can look at your chromosomes. Now, since you've been brilliantly educated, there's also hormones that change. So what hormones are predominantly in a male? Testosterone. So you could argue that if I have testosterone, I must be a male. And for females, you must have what? Estrogen or progesterone. Depending on who you talk to, they'll argue both of those. But only females should have those, right? So you can look at those hormones and try to determine what you are. Gonads and gametes. Okay, what's the male gonad and what's its gamete? Testes. Those make sperm. So you can argue if you have testes with sperm, you're a male. Therefore, females must be what? Ovaries, making eggs, oocytes, follicles, pick a word. Right? Internal genitalia. From your list last week, what are some internal genitals of a male? Prostate, so you do the glands. Look at your chart. List stuff that's internal. Vas deferens, prostate, seminal vesicle, all that stuff. Give me some girl internal stuff.
Ovaries.
The tubes.
Uterus.
Etc., etc. Uterus. Yeah. Look at your chart from last week. Right? So if you have a uterus, you're a girl. If you have a prostate, you're a boy. Right? That kind of logic. All right, from your chart last week, there's some external stuff that makes you boy and girl. What's an external part of a boy?
A penis.
Yeah, that's usually one. Scrotum, etc. And for girls? Labia. So I'll hit you with a word we learned last week. I'll say vulva. Right? But you can do all your external parts and say, well, if you have a clitoris, you're a girl. If you have a penis, you're a boy. Now, secondary sex characteristics. That means you associate with being male and female, but they're not like a physical thing, per se. So, what? Yeah, I got this. Facial hair. So men tend to be hairy. Right? Deeper voice. Muscle. Yes, me. Yes. I've been working out. No. Right? Muscle mass. Facial hair. Shoulders. Blah, 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 blah. Right? And for girls, boobs are nice.
Hips, butt.
Higher voice. No Adam's apple. Blah, blah, blah. Pick something you think is girly. Right? Then, if you really want to fight someone tonight over dinner, you can talk about behaviors. There are behaviors that sort of define. I have 3 kids. I know in like an instant which ones they were. So behavior for males. They pee on things.
They like to fight.
So some people say competitiveness. Again, these are sort of stereotypes, but aggression, competitiveness. You know, think with their penis. Stupid, can't multitask, I don't understand colors. Right? And women.
Emotional.
Unbelievably smart. You're going to quote to my wife. Multitask. Okay, so you can just fit in all sorts of things you think make men and women different behaviorally. That's not the point of the argument. Okay. So let's go down these 3 questions. What determines the chromosomal sex of a child?
The sperm.
The sperm and the egg, right?
But the egg is...
It's always X, right?
Yeah.
So if you remember biology 112, the egg carries an X every time. The sperm can be either an X or a Y. And when those meet, you'll either have XX or XY. So conception, which is what this is, determines the chromosomal sex of the child. Once you are conceived, you're genetically one or the other. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Physical sex of the child. What determines if you look boy or look girl? What was it? Hormones. Right? This is during development.
It don't, like, this kind of just looks like, it's hard to tell them apart, really.
It can be. But then you hit puberty, immediately you start noticing,
Yeah, then you can
Right.
tell.
right? But during development. Then you can fight people on what determines if you social gender. Right? You'll fight people on that one. So we're going to skip that one. We're going to get yelled at. Right? So what we're going to do is we're going to do a little experiment to determine how people develop. So to flip this page over, to understand this little case, I need to show you a picture of, not necessarily rats, not baby people.
It says rat studies on there?
It does, but I'm not going to show you pictures of rats. I'm going to show you this. Here you are in your mom's study. I love this phrase, biopotential gonad. In English, we learned that last week. So early in gestation, were you male or female, or neither or both?
Neither.
We don't know, right? So early in gestation, you have a gonad, which is neither or both. And you have two sets of tubes. You have a Wolffian duct and a Mullerian duct. So if they're not really red and blue. And if you're a male, you're going to turn on some of the tubing, the blue tube, and you're going to turn off the red tube. And you're going to make those become testes and descend. So when you're male, you turn off half the plumbing and turn on the other half. Fair enough? Too big. If you're a girl, you do the reverse. Make the gonads ovaries, turn off the boy plumbing, turn on the girl plumbing. Okay.
But if you don't get the male hormone, then the girl does get it.
Right.
So you have to like have input from the system for it
Yes.
to like be this other thing.
That's right, which we're going to learn tonight. But
Oh,
that is-
sorry.
Yep. So do okay? So you have basically two sets of tubes, and your body chooses one to determine if you're boy, one if you're a girl. Make sense? So take this door, this door. So we're going to give those tubes some names. So if you look at the blue tube, that's called the Wolffian duct. The blue tube makes you a boy. The way you remember that is men or dogs. So wolves or dogs, that's the boy tubes.
No fair.
First for me, 20 years since college, right? The Mullerian duct is the girl tube. Okay? And no, that's not going to be on your exam, so don't freak out about Mullerian and Wolffian.
So what decides that? What's the driving factor?
Well, let's figure that out. So go to your case study. So they're taking this study, this is real data by the way, and they do girl rats, baby rats in utero, and they leave them as females, and if you remember, this is girling tubes, so girl tubes stay on, boy tubes stay off. I take out the girl's ovaries, and what happens?
The same?
The same. So question A, what can you conclude about the role of ovary in causing differentiation in females? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if I have them or not. So you can have ovaries or not, and you'll still be a girl. We call that girl's default. Can you guess why in mammals you want girls as a default?
Because we carry on.
That's right, you make babies. So if anything, you want females to always be born, regardless of anything. So
And
you
there's
have
an
overshots.
infinite number of sperm compared to eggs.
Right, so one egg. So, default's a girl. You're going to be a girl unless told otherwise. So now we got to figure out boyland. So here you go. We have a normal male, and then we take out his testes. So normal male, the girl tubes turn off, the boy tubes turn on. We take out testes, and what do you see?
Reverse.
The reverse. The girl tubes stay on, and the boy tubes turn off. So what can you conclude about the role of testes?
They cause differentiation.
They do. They're required. So if you look at this picture, I have to have testes to be a boy. Because if I don't have testes, I stay girl. So part number one is you have to have testes to differentiate. So let's put that on the board. Get a better color. Oh, shocking red. So if you're undifferentiated, First step is if you have testes. So it seems that testes are what it takes to be a boy. So if I don't have testes, I'm a girl. If I have testes, I'm a boy. Make sense? Because girls default. So I'm going to stay a girl unless I have testes. Then I become a boy. Make sense? All right. Now I'm going to make it incredibly difficult for you. Turn the page and look at that data. You interpret it for me.
That's interesting.
That takes some thinking here.
You got both.
It's the test. Can I answer?
You made it home today.
All right, let's try to interpret this data. So, if you start looking at the data, you realize that it isn't just testes to be a boy, is it? Look at this third line and the fourth line. So in the fourth line, I still have testes, but I took away the testosterone, and look what happened. What am I?
Nothing.
I'm neither. So if it was just testes, I should be a boy. But I have testes, I took away testosterone, and I don't have either. Then look at number 3. I took out my testes and gave myself testosterone. Look, what am I? I'm both, yes.
So with the last one, what would happen to those organs? Would they just sit and do nothing?
They wouldn't develop. You'd basically stay with double malarian with a gonad that's non-differentiated. You'd be, nothing would happen to stay as
Kind
girls.
of.
So in the case of these, like where the testes are removed, say,
Yep.
that would be, well, in utero, would it then be born with displaying like normal female reproductive system?
This one? Or this one?
That one.
That one? Yes. If it's early enough in development, you'd be a girl.
Okay.
Right? So, we can now change this. It isn't just testes to be a boy. What else do you need to be a boy besides testes? Testosterone. And where's testosterone made? In your testes. So the order to make a boy is the order it takes to make the hormone. You have to build testes first. Testes then make testosterone. And when you have testes plus testosterone, you end up with a boy.
So is this up to the woman producing that?
This genetic. It should be genetic.
Okay.
Right? But let's see if we can fine-tune why this is. Not that you have to know this on a test, because you don't. It turns out testes turn off girl. Remember, girls default. So the testes' job is to stop you defaulting to girl. And therefore, the testosterone must be to do what?
Turn on boy.
Turn on boy. And if you look at the data, we can figure that out. So look at row number 3. In row number 3, I took out testes. That means I'm going to leave girl on. But if I add testosterone, I'm then going to turn on boy. So I'm going to have girl plus boy. Right? In row 4, I have testes. So no girl, but I don't have testosterone. So no boy. Make sense?
So what's determining this slight shift?
Ah, glad you asked. Let me show you an animation. Give me just a second to bring it up on the screen. There it is. This is very quirky and silly, but it works.
I do it to stay sharp. I take
Not the
care
ad.
of my
That's
body.
not right. Let's skip. Yeah. Remember the internet was
For
free?
you gentlemen, science has a confession. Your life actually began as a female. Well, phenotypically or physically speaking, that is, though some prefer to call this stage gender neutral. As you might know, when two people mate, they each combine half of their genetic information together, 23 chromosomes each. One pair of these chromosomes helps to determine your sex. If you're female, you contain 2 X chromosomes, one from your mother and one from your father, while males have 1 X and 1 Y chromosome. At the moment of conception, you were, of course, male or female based on your genes, but the Y chromosome doesn't kick in right away. In fact, the first 5 to 6 weeks of embryonic development are attributed to the X chromosome alone, and females grow from embryo to fully developed through the influence of only the X chromosome. So what does the Y chromosome do? Once activated, one of the genes on the Y chromosome, known as the SRY gene, has 2 functions: to inhibit certain features of the X chromosome and to impose through dominance the physiological traits that a male must have.
So, what determines that you have testes and testosterone?
SRY
The
gene.
SRY gene. You learned that in biology 112, I thought, right? You learned that the Y chromosome contains an SRY gene that trumps the default and makes you, or lowers it, however you want to do it, and makes you girl. So, if you go back to our little magical thing here, what determines the testes is the SRY gene. The SRY gene job is to make testes. The testes then make testosterone, and those two make a boy.
Sorry, Jen.
Yeah. Sorry, Gene. Yeah.
Sorry.
It is sorry. I'm a boy. Yes.
So how do you get like an XXY individual?
That's a non-disjunction. So what happened was either the sperm or the egg didn't do meiosis correctly, and then for 2 copies. So you end up with an extra dose. Let's go back to our little magical thing again.
Just real quick, so is the X doing that stuff for the first, 6 weeks because it has so many other genes on it, it's trying to develop the baby enough to even...
So basically, you got to build the person, and then at the end of that, then you can decide if it's a boy or girl. You got to have a heart, got to have a brain. So, roll it back. Let's go back to our little magic girl here.
The ovaries descend and become the testes, and the labia fuses to create the scrotum. If you're a male, take a look. Though it's more pronounced in some men than others, you'll likely notice a line or ridge of tissue on the scrotum, which is called the scrotal raphe. The skin of the scrotum and penis are zipped up like a zipper as the layers of cells develop in the embryo. And the male variant of the clitoris? Yep, that's the penis. If the Y chromosome does not become activated for some reason, then the female phenotype or physical appearance will persist in a male. While we're at it, this is also part of the reason males have nipples. The nipples form before the activation of the Y chromosome and SRY gene, and thus remain through development and life. But you don't develop breasts. Sorry. Ask it in the comments or on Facebook and Twitter, and subscribe for more weekly science videos.
Cool? So, take-home message, to be a boy, you have to have an SRY, make your testes, and testes make your testosterone, and testosterone that turns off all the girl stuff, right? So let's go back to our magical case. And go, skip a couple pages because we're getting a little late. So go down to page 37 at the bottom. And then you're going to go home and then cry yourself to sleep wondering what you really are based on this. So look at 4A. We have an individual who is XX. So what should they be chromosomally? You're a female. All right, but look what happened. We stuck the SRY on their gene. So what will they become if they have SRY and it's expressed on their chromosomes?
Male and female.
They will be male only. 100% male all the day long. Because what makes you male is the SRY turns off girl and turns on boy.
So it's on the X chromosome?
That's right, but they have the gene for being a boy.
So could they be women too?
Nope, they're 100% male.
Are they fertile?
Yep, completely.
Wow.
Looking at that person, it'd be 100% male, nothing. But if you did a gene test, they'd show up as a girl chromosomally. But they're a male 100% through. They have testes, penis, everything. They're fertile.
What?
Because the SRY says, don't be a girl, be a boy. Yes.
Will they only have women offspring?
Yes, the trick is, unless they translocate the Y with the X, they'll generally have girls. But it depends on which one gets the SRY.
Huh.
So, you could be a boy, but genetically, you might be a girl. And you wouldn't know by looking at you. Let's go to the Olympic people who have problems. There's this one. You're XY, so you are genetically a, but you don't have your SRY. Therefore, you are female, because without an SRY, default says girl, but genetically, you're a boy.
Isn't this like a genetic, mutation?
It's kind of like a mutation. Usually it's a translocation. Just different. There's that Olympic runner, what was that? 4 years ago, whatever. She failed her sex test because she showed up as a boy.
Oh my gosh.
Because she was this. She genetically had an XY, but she had been a girl from birth because you are a girl. You're 100% girl. There's nothing wrong with you, but genetically you're a boy.
I thought that was a testosterone insensitivity,
Which is bad.
Yeah,
Yep.
she failed to develop.
Yeah, so there's different ways that will express itself, but in this case, This one, you'll be a girl because you don't have the SRY gene. There's also ones where you have the SRY, but you don't listen to it. You're still a girl.
Which actually athletically puts you at a disadvantage if
Probably
you're
does.
insensitive to stuff.
But the test is only if you're male or female, genetically. Yeah.
Oh, that was kind of what I was gonna ask, is like, it wouldn't make her like more competitive as like
No.
male.
But the test for the Olympics is that you have to be XX.
They gave her her medal back though.
Yeah, they did eventually. But listen to this one. This one will really freak you out. You're XX, but you end up with testosterone in your body because your mom has a tumor or she took steroids while pregnant. So what will happen to you if you're double X and I give you only testosterone?
Nothing,
Let's figure it out.
because you don't have testes.
Or the SY.
So I
So it's
don't
a
have an
girl.
SRY, therefore I will
Yeah.
not make these. Therefore I don't turn off girl.
Yeah.
But guess what? I have testosterone, which means I'm going to.
Turn on boy.
Well, hermaphrodite.
That's right. I'm going to be boy and girl. Both.
Huh.
Internally. Because I kept the girl parts on and then added the boy on top of it. Go home and look in the mirror and start crying, right?
Sweet. Would that present physically on the outside at all?
It doesn't have to. The outside is kind of separately run than this one. So this is all the internal stuff.
Okay.
So you could have a uterus and a prostate, for example.
But what would happen with your gonads in that case? Would you have like one is one and one is the other?
You can
or
keep
like
them you can keep them in your abdomen as ovaries. You can keep them in the abdomen as testes that don't descend. You can descend one and not the other. If you have double, you would have two. Yep.
Disco.
That's right. Yes.
In the book Middlesex, the main
Yep.
character is the child of like a lot of incest, and they were talking about how that happened in Greece a lot. And I mean, this is just a book, but I'm just wondering, like, is there a way that incest would actually scientifically like affect whether or not you're going to be a hermaphrodite, or
Not
like,
necessarily, no more than any other gene.
but they're saying like in Greece there's like a higher level of hermaphrodites. Is there any reason why that would be?
Not that I can think of.
Okay.
Yeah, because the translocation factor is independent of which gene it is. So as you inbreed, you get translocation of everything. But usually they're fatal. That's probably why you only see the hermaphrodites. They don't die.
There's some saying that if you drink more alkaline water that you can have a boy. And then if you're, no, a girl, and then more acidity,